Today we're going to be looking at an incredibly popular deck. It's the fourth deck profile that we're talking about for Evolving Skies, so let's get into it. Hey everybody, Nick from 9Card TCG, and today we're going to be looking at Rayquaza Vmax. We've already looked at Duraludon Vmax, Umbreon, and Glaceon Vmax, and today we gotta cover Rayquaza Vmax because it is such a popular deck. This deck list is brought to us by Andrew Mahone over at Tricky Gym, so thank you very much, Andrew, for the list. Definitely go check out the channel, one of the best Pokemon TCG content creators there is, and I have a link to the video talking about his Rayquaza Vmax deck list, and so go check that out if you like. But let's get into today's deck list. So the first thing I want to say is that you technically can go and buy Rayquaza V and Rayquaza Vmax on places like eBay or Facebook Marketplace or whatever. However, I would avoid getting them right now if possible, unless you absolutely have the funds in order to get the cards, or you really want to get them right now. Prices are going to be higher than they would be once the set releases, because when the set releases, everyone's going to have access to the cards, and there's going to be more Rayquaza Vs and Vmaxes popping around, not just what people have pulled during pre-release events this past week. So keep that in mind. Prices are a little bit inflated at the moment, but I can't tell you how to spend your money. I went and bought a playset of Umbreon V and Vmax because I couldn't wait, because I'm an impatient child. So let's look at this. The first thing you might notice is that some of the colors are green, and then you have some colors for the card counts that are like a reddish purple. And the reason I did that is because the green will tell you the cards that are coming out in Evolving Skies, and the purple-ish is cards that we already have available to us. So if you see the green, it's a new card. If you see the red or the purple, whatever, it's a card we already have. So let's talk about Rayquaza V. It's a Rapid Strike Pokemon, 2 retreat costs, so Air Balloon and Towers of Water gets us to retreat it for free. However, we really don't care that it's a Rapid Strike Pokemon at the moment, at least not in this deck. So maybe some other deck it'll be interesting to see, but definitely not for this. If you look closely at Rayquaza, you'll notice that it can only eat applesauce, and I think that's really interesting. Also, we don't really use Rayquaza V. We really want to evolve as quickly as possible into Rayquaza Vmax. So we're going to focus on Rayquaza Vmax. The Vmax has an incredible ability, Azure Pulse, which once during your turn, you can discard your hand and draw 3 cards. So you can play all the cards in your hand, use Crickettoon's Exciting Stage ability to draw a couple of cards, and you say, oh man, I really don't like these. Azure Pulse, discard them, draw 3 more, and the best thing about this is that you can use this ability for each Rayquaza that you have on the field, each Rayquaza Vmax that is. So if you have 3 Vmaxes on the field, you can Azure Pulse 3 times, because it doesn't say you can only use 1 Azure Pulse ability each turn. It says just once during your turn, you can do this per card. So really cool ability. Max Burst is the attack, and it costs 1 fire and 1 lightning, and it does base 20 damage, but for each fire or lightning energy you discard, it does an additional 80 damage. Now, it's really important that when you are playing a deck like Rayquaza, you keep an eye on how much energy you have and how much you need to discard, because the last thing you want to do is discard 4 energies to knock out a Crickettoon, and then you do the math and you say, oh man, I really didn't need to do that, I just wasted 2 energies. Or on the other side, you say, oh, I only need to discard 3 energies, and then you do the math and it's like, oh man, no, that Pokemon's not knocked out. So in order to play this deck most effectively, you gotta be able to do a little bit of quick math. If you want to take a knockout on an opposing Flaffy or Drizzile, then you only need to discard 1 energy, because that's 80 plus the base 20 gives you 100. If you're going to take a knockout on an opposing Crickettoon or Crobat, well, now you only have to discard 2, because 80 and 80 is 160 plus base 20 gives you the perfect 180 that you need. In order to knock out a Pokemon V, you need to discard 3, and in order to knock out a Pokemon Vmax, you need to discard 4, assuming that the Urshifu or the I don't know, the Eternatus or Shadow Rider, whatever, does not have something to boost its HP like a big charm. But typically those decks don't play those, so you shouldn't have to worry too much. I can't stress this enough, keep an eye on how much damage you need to do and how many energies you have to discard in order to hit that mark. Also, just be very careful if you are constantly dumping your hand and drawing 3 cards with Azure Pulse. You can deck out, so make sure you close out the game quickly. How do we get all these energies onto our Rayquaza in order to use Max Burst? Well, luckily for us, we have the reintroduction of, I guess it's not the reintroduction of Flaffy, but there was another card in the previous set that basically did what Flaffy does now. It has the Dynamotor ability, which once during your turn, you can attach a lightning energy from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon. Very, very important benched Pokemon. Why is it really important? Well, because you have Rayquaza A in the active spot, and you say, I'm going to Max Burst and discard all my lightning energy to take a knockout on a Pokemon. Well, when it's your turn again, the Rayquaza that you have in the active, assuming that your opponent didn't knock it out, now has no energy on it, or it has 1 fire energy, for example. And you say, okay, I'm going to Dynamotor, but you can't put the energy back onto the active Rayquaza. You have to retreat that Rayquaza, put something else in the active so that you can Dynamotor, and then get it back into the active. That's a lot of switching. So what you need to do is rotate Rayquazas in between, like after attacks. So if you have a Rayquaza in the active ready to attack, you gotta have another Rayquaza ready to go on the bench so that after you discard those energies, you can then attack again. There are other ways we can deal with this, but this is one strategy of rotating Rayquazas. Mareep is in the deck just because you need Mareep to evolve into Flaffy, and Kricketune just for a little bit of draw support. So those are your Pokemon. Let's move on to the supporters. We run a very low supporter count in this deck of 2 Boss's Orders, 2 Rose, and 4 Research. Rose is one of the ways that we can kind of circumvent the whole having to switch Rayquazas and rotate between them, because Rose has attached 2 basic energies from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon Vmax. It does not have to be a bench Pokemon, but if you do attach energies using Rose, you have to discard your hand. Not really a huge problem in this deck because we do have Azure Pulse, and we can do that theoretically up to 4 times per turn, not including things like Professor's Research for the next turn, because if you use Rose, you can't research the same turn. Normally, I would suggest only discarding lightning energies with Max Burst, because you really don't have that many fire energies, and finding them can be difficult. Using Rose is one way to get a fire energy out of the discard pile and put it back onto your Pokemon, but as you see with Dynamotor, it's really easy to get lightning energies back, and if you have 4 Flaffies on the bench, well then in theory you can get 4 lightning energies onto one of your benched Rayquaza Vmax, or bench Pokemon really. So getting the fire energy is kind of the problem. So when you Max Burst, you really don't want to discard that fire energy unless you have a Rose ready to go. But again, your opponent can Marnie, so that's always a little risky. The only time I would really suggest discarding the fire energy with Max Burst is if you need it to close out the game, or you need it to really disrupt your opponent to the point where they might as well concede. So that is something else to keep in mind. Moving on to our list of trainers. Like most decks, we have a ton of trainers. A lot of them really common trainers you see in every deck. Quick Ball to help find Rayquazas and Flaffies. Level Balls to find those Mareeps and those Flaffies. Air Balloon to help you cycle between your Rayquazas, same as Switch. Evolution Incense to find your Rayquaza Vmax and your Flaffy, or your Flaffies. Ordinary Rod and Rescue Carrier are interesting. We're running a copy of each because, well, Ordinary Rod lets you search your deck for up to 2 Pokemon and 2 basic energies and put them back into your deck. Rescue Carrier lets you put 2 Pokemon with 90 HP or less from your discard pile back into your deck, which is really good. This is important because Rapid Strike Urshifu is expected to be a very tough matchup against this deck. And the reason for that is because Gmax Rapid Flow will do 120 damage to 2 of your Pokemon. Well, if they're smart, they're going to target your Flaffies, because without your Flaffies, you can't attack that often because you have no way of getting those energies onto your Rayquaza Vmax. So your Flaffies are going to be the target of Gmax Rapid Flows. And so you need ways to get those Flaffies and Mareeps out of the discard pile back into your deck so you can set up attacks with Max Burst. And Rescue Carrier and Ordinary Rod are the ways to do it. Pal Pad lets you shuffle 2 supporters from your discard pile back into your deck. This is really important for finding things like Boss's Orders and especially Rose. And the new Stormy Mountains, I should mention that Rescue Carrier is new too. Stormy Mountains, once during each player's turn, they may search their deck for a basic Lightning or basic Dragon type Pokemon and put it onto the bench and shuffle the deck. This is great because it lets you search for either Rayquaza V or your Mareeps, whatever you need. So this is a great card for early game to get your Flaffies and get your Rayquaza Vmaxes onto the field as quickly as possible. The last thing we have are the energies, and we're running, as you can see, 9 lightning energies and 4 fire energies. So that's one of the reasons that we don't want to discard the fire energies with Max Burst. We are running far fewer fire energies than we do lightning energies. Why? Well, because we need the lightning energies for Dynamotor. We already covered that, and you guys are smart. You can figure that out. You don't need me to tell you that. So that's really the deck list. The last thing that we can talk about in terms of Rayquaza Vmax are some matchups, and there are 3 matchups that I think are going to give you the toughest time, and those are Rampage like Urshifu, which we already talked about, and that's kind of a problem because Rampage like Urshifu is considered one of, if not the best decks that there is, and post-rotation, it is expected to be even better than it is now because Mew has the bench barrier ability, and that's going to get rotated come September. So following rotation, Rampage like Urshifu is like nothing is going to be able to stop it for the most part. And oh boy, this deck is going to, can you beat Rampage like Urshifu with this deck? Yeah, any deck could beat any other deck, but man, it'll be hard to do. The other decks that I think will give you a problem are Victini Vmax and Ice Rider Calyrex, because they both do the same thing. They both have hit for big damage turn 2. You know, their whole strategy is go first, set up what they need, and then attack one of your Pokemon V that has some energy on it. Turn 2, take the knockout, and now you're delayed because you just lost some energies and things like that. Not as big of a deal for Rayquaza because we can get our Dynamotor going and get the energies back onto our Rayquaza anyway. But it's still a little annoying to have, first, if your opponent already took 2 prizes and now you're behind the prize game, and also if your fire energy was on there, or if you don't have another Rayquaza V on the bench, or you don't have a way to cycle to get your Rayquaza V into the active spot or something like that, then you have to send up a Flaffy or a Mareep so that you can use Dynamotors, because again, Dynamotor only works to the bench, so it can really set you behind or be a little irritating in the beginning of the game. And I think those are the 2 that are like the biggest problem. But that's pretty much the whole video. I just kind of wanted to talk about this deck, highlight some of the interesting parts of it, talk about how it's played, show off some of the cards, at least one version of a deck list. And I hope you enjoyed the video or found it a little informative. If you did, don't be afraid to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification button. Leaving likes and comments, sharing, subscribing, all that kind of stuff is a great way to help the channel. It tells YouTube that other people should see this video, and it helps the channel grow. So I would really appreciate it if you could just hit the like button, leave a comment. You don't have to leave, if you don't know what to say, just tell me what deck you're looking forward to playing the most, or what your least favorite deck is. I'm more interested in your least favorite decks than I am your favorite, but that's because I'm weird. But anyway, I also have a Discord. You can find the link to that in the video description, as well as my social media description, as well as my social media links in the description. My brain sometimes just goes a little faster than my mouth can produce words, so sometimes I say really silly things. I do it all the time with my wife. She loves it. It's very funny to her. But anyway, again, rambling and ranting, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.